Hello everyone, welcome back. In previous classes, we have created a basic Mule application and we have seen the few of the basic connectors like set payload and the set variable and the logger, this type of and listener, this type of connector we have seen, and we have seen how basically this works. In this flow, we are going to see types of flow, how many types of flow is possible in the Mule. If you're talking about the Mule, first is the main flow that we used to create, and we have created many main flow till now. Now after that we have the private flow, and after that we have the sub flow. So if you don't know what is private flow, what is main flow, and what is sub flow, don't be panic. I am going to cover each and every topic in detail. So these are the three flow that is present in the MuleSoft: main flow, private flow, and sub flow. Okay. Apart from that, we are going to see flow reference. Flow reference, if you talk about the flow reference is used to refer the subflow and the private flow to the main flow. We are also going to see how basically flow reference works. Now, let's first understand the till now I have not created anything. You can see everything is blank. I am going to create a new Mule application from scratch. But before that, let's understand what is the requirement to create the Mule application. In the previous classes, if you remember, in the employee rating API, we have basically getting the response from the listener, and we are routing according to the request. We are updating to table, we are deleting the table, and we are selecting the table, and we are inserting to table. Okay, and the table that we are using is this table. Earlier this table, that is the employee table, having some employee ID, employee name, employee rating, and the year and employee type. These are the column that is present, that we are inserting the value in the table. Now consider a requirement. We have the two table. First table is the employee, and second table is the HR table. An employee table is accessible to everyone in the higher management, but HR table is used to by HR only. The company HR used to use HR table. So we want to insert same value into two table. Let's take example. I want to insert the value into the employer table. Also, I want to insert the value into the HR table. Then how we can implement this? This we are going to see. The first we are going to create a flow where we are going to first insert into the employer table. Once it is inserted into the employer table, again we are going to insert into the HR table. And further we are going to see, with the help of same flow, we are going to see how basically it works in case of private flow and the sub flow. Okay, let's create the new Mule application. Let me cross this and let me create the new. Go to file, new, and the Mule project. Give here the Mule application name. Let me give the Mule application name as Mule app and flow. I am writing the name so that I can further in future I can get what is this flow basically used to do. So I have written the Mule application and the flow reference. Okay, make sure the latest version of the Mule is selected, and I am not importing, I am not doing anything, just click simply on finish. Once the finish will be done, it will create the flow. Okay, so in this module we are going to use the insert connector to insert into two different database. First insert connector will be used to insert database into the employee table, and second insert data connector is used to the insert into the this table. But before the between the connectors like that, I am going to use the logger to print the value in the console to see what is happening. And also I am going to use the set variable, but why I am going to use set variable, I will show you later. Now in this area I am going to design the flow. So let's first use the HTTP listener to get the request from the client. With the help of HTTP listener, I am going to get the request from the client. After that I am going to use the, okay, it is not responding, let's wait. Okay, after that I am going to use the set variable to set the variable. I am going to use the set variable. Whatever the value coming in the payload, whatever the value coming in the payload, I am going to set the value inside the variable. So whatever I am sending here in the body, that all value I am going to set in the variable. Okay. Now after that I am going to use the logger node to print the value on the console. Okay. Again after that I am going to insert value into the, okay, let me copy, okay, let me again copy it, insert, and let me copy this and give here. I am going to insert the value into the employer table. After that again I am going to use the logger to see what is the result coming after the insert connector executed. Again let's use the another insert node to see to insert into the another database, that is the HR table, and again use the logger to see what is coming output after the insert node. Okay, till here it is done. And let's use the transform message node to prepare the response, and here I am going to use the hard code response, but later we can see how we can how we can get rid of the hard coding. But for now I will do the hard coding. I am basically more focusing on the concept rather than the modifying the flow. Okay, so this is the flow I have ready. Let's, once I am sending this request, the request will come to HTTP listener. After that it will come to a set variable. Here I am going to set the variable. In variable I am going to set the payload. Whatever the payload is coming, I am going to set into the variable. Now why we are sending this payload into the variable, there is a reason behind it. Okay, let me go forward and I will explain you. Okay, keep in mind, I am setting whatever the payload coming here, I am setting into the variable. Okay, and I will give here variable name. What should be variable name? Under that I am storing the payload. Okay, the logger is used to print the value some inside the console. So what is coming in the payload, I am going to print here to see whether it is what is coming in the payload. Again here insert, once here it will come, it will insert the data into the employer table and value will be inserted to this table. Now after that again here I am using logger to see what value is coming in the payload to print on the console. But when here it will came, you will see in the payload, till here in payload this payload is present, but once the insert happened, the payload got deleted. This is the one of the problem with the MuleSoft. If the insert query happen and if the insert into database happen, after that payload got deleted. But again we have to insert here also. That is the problem we have. Here we want to insert, but we don't have the payload to insert it. That is the reason I have used the variable. I am storing the payload inside the variable so that I can use here. Again, I will use the variable stored value, stored payload in the variable here to insert into database, and after that I am going to use a logger to print what is coming on the payload, and here I am going to use some hard coding to print some response on the console. Okay, so that is the simple flow. We are getting response request. After that we are setting the value inside the payload variable. We are setting variable, and the variable value we are setting as a payload. We are inserting to the employer table, and we are inserting to HR table with the help of the payload that we have kept inside the variable, and after that again we are giving the response. But if you see, this flow becomes so linear. But if we use the private flow or the sub flow, the flow will become very short. Now let's first implement the main flow. Once main flow will be implemented, I am going to show you how basically sub flow or the private flow works. This flow is called the main flow. You can see here the Mule app flow reference that I have created. This flow is called the main flow. Until now I am working with this main flow. Okay, only I have not used private flow, sub flow, and the flow reference anything. Okay, so let's first implement the main flow. For that, you can see in the view of the connector it is coming like that, red marks. So let's remove the red mark by configuring the connector, the connection details, all things. Okay, so let's click on the plus and give the all details. Let's keep the base path. I want to take the this base path, that base path. Let's keep the base path as slash flow, and let's keep test connection. Let's see the connection is working fine or not. Now you can see connection is successful. Just click on OK. Now after that we have to set here the subpath. In subpath, let's use the v1 slash myflow. Okay, and let's use this here. Okay, so now that is done, you can use anything. It is up to you, this URL. You can modify this URL, then this will be modified. Okay, so this is the actually the URL that we use to hit the web service or hit the API. Okay, now you can see the error from this happen. It's gone. Now let's go to the set variable. In the variable we are setting the whatever the payload coming from the this request. I am setting this value inside the inside the variable. So let me give the variable name. Let me give the variable name as the var okay, I'm just given any name. You can write any name. That's like I read it like the var payload. Okay, okay, let me modify something. Payload underscore HR. Okay, and just you can write any name, that is up to you. Under that I am going to store the this payload. And how we can store the payload? If you want to if you want to get payload, the we have the just click on fx and write here the payload. Okay, right here the payload. Okay, what will happen, already I have explained you in the previous classes. Let me go through that. If you want to fetch something information from the payload, then we used to give the hash and payload, that is the something data wave. And if you want to fetch something from attribute, then you have to attribute the query parameter and the field name. If you want to something fetch from the variable, we used to give the variable name. Okay, but here I want to fetch something from the payload, because till here, if you see, once the sorry once the once we hit the web service, this web service, it will come to listener, and here it is stored inside the payload. It is this in the listener itself, this is stored inside the payload. And now from the payload we are fetching the value and setting the variable. To fetch the value from the payload we used to payload, but if you want to fetch something field from the payload, then we are going to use dot and the field name. But here we want to fetch whole payload, so I am going to write the payload only. Okay, now in logger also, I want to print on the console what is the payload, so again I am going to write the here payload. Okay, in insert I am going to insert the value into this database. Okay, so let's use the configuration to configure database. Okay, I have already a database configuration here that I am going to use this database configuration to store this value inside this database. Okay, so this is the MySQL database, so I am going to use the MySQL connection. After that I am going to use the add recommended library. Just click on OK. You can see it will be now green tick. Okay, after that give the host detail, these all configuration detail give here. So let me give the host name. This is the host name I have, and let me give here. Okay, and let me give the port as the 3306 that is present for this. Okay, you can see the port is 3306. Let me give the username and database name, both are the same, so let me give that username database name. This is the username and this is the database name, and the password, that is this. So let me copy this password and let me give here, and click on test connection to check the connection is working perfectly with database or not. That is very important to check whether we are able to make connection to database using the credential from the Mule application or not. Okay, you can see the test is successful, then click on OK. Okay, my database configuration has been completed successfully. Okay, let me give here the SQL query and the named input parameter so that it will insert into database. So I don't want to again insert, don't want to go write again insert query. This insert query already I have written into this flow. So again I am going to this flow and copy this insert query and write here. Okay, so let me go to the insert syntax. This is the insert. Okay, and let me copy the insert query from here and let me write here. Okay, now input parameter, again same I am going to use from here. And how basically this input parameter and these all works, if you want to know, let's go to previous lecture and see basically how it's work. Okay, but again I am going to explain here in brief. Okay, not in detail. What I am doing here, just click on effects. Okay, what I am doing here, I am inserting into the table employee. These are the table column name. You can see employee ID, employee name, employee rating, year, and employee type. You can see. Okay, and I am giving these values inside the values. I am giving this employee ID, employee name, employee rating, employee year, employee type with named parameter. You can see there is a column used. This column is called named parameter. And in this value, in the named parameter, we are passing the value from the input parameter and the value that we are passing from the payload, because here in the payload this value is coming, in the payload this value is coming. So what we are going to do, we are in employee ID, we are going inside the payload and we are fetching the field employee ID. This is the payload. I am going inside the payload and fetching the value employee ID, and this is the value coming, and this value I am assigning against EMP ID, and this value is going to here, and again this value is going to insert into this field. Okay. Similarly, employee name, employee rating, this or everything I am fetching from this payload, and these all value I am going to insert into this all columns. Okay. Now this is also done. In the again logger, let's print the payload to see what is coming in the payload. And here in payload you are not going to see here in payload we are not going to see the payload value that it is coming from here, because after the insert query run the payload got deleted. So here we are going to see some java type of some thing, but we are not going to see the payload itself. Okay. Now let's go to again second insert, and here I am going to insert the value, same value, into the HR table. Okay. So let's implement the, let's select the, already I have set used the configuration here, same configuration I am going to use to connect the database. And again here I am going to write the insert query to insert into the HR table. The HR table in HR table we are sending same value with the same column name, so we are not going to change anything. But if you want change you can change, but I don't want to change because it is up to the payload what is coming. We are sending the same payload, so we have to use the same value. Okay. So let's copy this insert query and let's give here insert query. But here the table name is different, so I am going to use the change the table name to HR. Okay. Now, but problem here is that this thing I cannot use here. If you go to here, and here if you see in the input parameter we have the value employee ID, and that is we are setting from the payload. But if you see here and click on FX, okay, here we cannot use the payload.employee ID because region is the problem is that if you use the payload.empid, there will be error happen in this flow. There will be a error happen because this payload is not present. Okay. And the flow is going to fail. So let me first show you while using this payload, and after that I am going to show you by modifying this. Okay. So let me again here, let me write the simple as payload. Okay. And let me try to deploy the flow with the debug operation. Okay. Once it is deployed, I am going to hit this flow, but this flow is going to fail here in during the insert, because in here I am trying to insert into a HR table with the help of payload, but this payload is inserted once this insert happen, because once this insert happen this payload got auto deleted. Okay. That is the issue with the insert or select anything, insert, select, whatever the purpose you are doing. After this query, after this run, this got deleted. Okay. So let's try to see what is happening. Let me go to the console whether it is deploying or not. Okay. Currently it is deploying. Okay. Now it is deployed, and just switch to the debugger mode. Okay. Still it is deploying, so let's wait for the few minutes. Okay. Okay. Once it is deployed, then we are going to hit this web service and see what is happening. Before that, let me add a breakpoint here. Add a breakpoint, and now you can see it is deployed. This is the Mule application. Current status is deployed. So let's hit the web service. Again, I am going to select the method as a post, and this is the web service URL I am going to use. In the body, I am selecting the JSON message, and I am sending this values. Okay. Just click on send. Now you can see the flow has reached here. Okay, and you can see in the payload this is the same coming whatever present here. Here it is same coming, whatever sending in the body it is going in the payload. Okay, currently in the variable you can see nothing is stored. You can see size is 0, and in attribute we are sending nothing, so the no need to worry. Again in the future state we are going to set the payload with the variable. So let's move forward. Now this set variable executed. In set variable, if you see what we are doing, in set variable we are creating a variable with the name payload underscore hr, and under this variable we are storing the whole payload that coming from this body. So let's see whether it is stored or not. You can see a new variable has created, so size 1 is showing, and the variable name I have written here the payload nhr, and you can see under this whole message is stored. You can test here also. If let's take example, I want to fetch some value inside the variable, so I can write vars dot what is the payload dot hr, right? Payload payload hr, and I want to fetch like the emp id. So let's see emp id and just click on evaluate. You can see this value is similar to this value. Okay, so I am fetching emp id from the variable. So what I am using, I am writing vars dot the variable name, that is the payload dot underscore hr. Under that field is emp id, and that I am fetching the value and writing here. Okay, so you can see how basically we have set it this whole payload inside this variable. Okay, now let's move forward. Now if you go to the logger, in logger what we are sending, in logger we are sending whatever the whole payload coming here, this whole payload we are printing on the console. You can see it is printed into the console. Okay, now after that, once this flow will executed, it is going to insert into the this table, that is employer table. If you see, let me run this. Currently in the employer table there is no value is present. Okay, once we run this, value is going to insert. So let me move forward. Now you can see, if I show you, you can see one value is inserted with employee id and the rating is a. This value is inserted, but if you now see here in the payload is not present. You can see something Java type of thing has come, and this payload is dot payload that we are sending here in the body, that is deleted in the here. Okay, that is not present here, that is deleted. Okay, and again if you go to the loggers, the same thing you can see is going to print. And if you see here, okay, in the logger you can see same thing, something printed, that is not the Java thing. Let's go to the next insert. Here I am going to insert into the table hr. Okay, with the same column name, with same value name, but problem is here is we are fetching value from the in the value that we are setting in the table, that we are fetching from the payload under the employee id. But if you see the payload, currently in the payload nothing is present, only this is present in payload. No emp id, no rating, no nothing is present. Okay, so we cannot fetch this value from the payload. Then how we can achieve this? To achieve this, we can see in the variable still this payload is stored. Then what we are going to do, we are going to write vars dot payload underscore hr dot emp name to fetch the emp value, and again we are going to insert this into the table. Vars.payload.empid to fetch the value of empid, and that we are going to insert into the table. Similarly, we are going to use the emp rating and emp year and emp type to fetch the value to insert into the table. Let's move forward. You can see the error will happen. Now you can see error happen, and the error is saying that column empid cannot be null because it tried to find the empid not getting, so it is failing. Let's move forward, and you can see here in this column empid cannot be null directly came. One thing you have noticed that if basically in the response you can see from here connector is connected, but in case some error happen, it will directly route from here to here, it will not move forward. The in case of inflow, if something error happen from that flow, from that connector where the issue happened, it will directly route to the first node. Okay, so let's me modify the node second hr1, and let me again try to deploy it. Okay, let's write here, let me try to make it little bit. Okay, let's write here in empid value I want to set from the variable. So let me, instead of payload, I am going to write the vars. Okay, vars, let me once vars and underscore and the payload is, you can take the payload from here, payload name, that is the payload name, and let me write here below, and this one. Okay, let me, okay, that is okay, fine. I think that is a small var. Okay, now that is fine. Okay, so what I am doing to do, I am just using the vars dot payload hr, vars to fetch the value inside field inside the variable, and this is the variable name, and under that we have the empid. I am taking the empid value and assigning against this, and this is present here, and again this is going to insert into this. Similarly, let me do for the other. Let me copy this and let me paste for the other, and let me, okay, now let me do. Okay, now it is done. What I have done, I am just doing the vars and the payload. This is the I am fetching variable, I am setting the value of empid against this, and this is going to here, and this is going to insert. Similarly, I am doing for the emp name, emp rating, here this all thing doing. Okay, this is done. Now before going to run this flow, I want to create some response, hard coded response for the output. Okay, so let's write the some hard coding. Okay, let me make this as a JSON. I want to print response as a JSON, and let me write here as a status, not like that. Let me write here a status and as both table so I have written a hard coded value. I am giving the out, I am giving a response here as a JSON response, and response I am sending as a status, and status I am sending both table, employee and HR inserted successfully. Okay, simple thing I am writing here. Okay, now let's deploy this application and let's try to hit the flow. Okay, This is already deployed, you can see it is running. Okay, let's go to the debug perspective, and again I am going to hit the flow. Let's see whether it has been deployed successfully. Okay, it is deployed successfully. Let's try to hit the flow. Let me change some name. Let me make my name Rishu, and let me make my employee ID that 758. Okay, let me return something, and let me make my rating as a C band, and let me try to hit the. Okay, I have sent it. Okay, now it came to this flow. You can see in the payload it is coming the value. After that I am going to move forward. You can see in the variable I am setting the payload with the name variable name payload underscore hr. After that in I am printing the log. With the help of logger I am printing the payload inside the log. Okay, now here I am going to insert the value inside the employer table, and you can see the employer table only one value, that is the ND is present, nothing is present. Okay, so let's move forward, but before that I want to show you the table. Only one value is present. It is table is taking time, so let's wait. You can see only ND is present. Okay, so let's move forward. Let me try to move forward. Now flow has executed, and if you see the table, a new column has been inserted with Rishu. My band is C, and my employee ID. Now let's move forward, and we are going to again see what is coming in the payload in the logger. You can see in the logger only this is coming, no payload is coming in logger. This is something coming, and you can see here also in the payload only this is coming, not actual payload is coming. But we have already stored the payload inside the variable. For the next insert I am going to use the value stored inside the variable. So in this insert, when it is going to hit, the value is going to insert inside the table HR table, and let me run this HR table to show you what is present inside this table. You can see currently no value is inserted inside the HR table. So let's try to insert into the HR table. Let me move forward. You can see my flow has executed successfully. Let's try to go to see whether the value has inserted into the HR table or not. You can see the value has been inserted into the HR table with the employee ID this, name Rishu, and these all value it has inserted successfully. Now again we are going to see what is coming over the logger in the payload. So let's move forward. You can see in the payload nothing is coming because again it is deleting the value in the payload. You can see nothing, and in the variable it is still present. Okay, now in the transform message we are using to give the response to the listener. So let's move forward, and you can see the response we will get as a status as a both table employee and HR inserted successfully. This is the same what I have set it here. This is the same coming here. Okay, so now you can see this main flow, now it is working perfectly and it is successful. Now let's implement the other flow. Main flow we are done. Okay, now let's implement the sub flow and the private flow. Let me stop the debugger. Let's first the subflow. To implement the subflow, what you have to do, type here sub, and you can see there is a subflow present, and just drag and drop here. in the open area. You can see here it has came subflow, you can see, and whatever the connector you want to keep here, you can keep and refer to the main flow with the help of flow reference. So let me show you. I want to use the insert here, so I have used the insert, okay, and I want to refer into the flow, into this flow. To refer this insert, refer this flow, to refer this subflow, you have to use the flow reference. So let's use the flow reference. You can see this is the flow reference. Let's copy and drag to this between the node. Okay. Here you have to refer to the flow. Which flow you want to refer? My flow name is mule app flow subflow. So let me refer to that flow. You can see this is the subflow I am referring. Now you can see error has gone. Now once this flow will came here, this will automatically route to this subflow. And once this is successful, after that again it is going to move forward. Now this is all about the subflow. One thing you have to notice in the subflow. Ideally a connector comprises of three parts. The first part is before dotted. This is the event source. Second is the event processor, and the third is the error handling. But in the subflow, only this part is present, that is the event processor, not the event source, and event handling is present. Error handling is present. So this is the one important point that you need to keep in mind. Only event processor is present for the subflow. Now let's talk about the private flow. We have talked about the subflow. Now let's talk about the private flow. To create a private flow, you have to drag and drop any node. Any node, just drag and drop it. Let me drag and drop the logger itself. Okay. And just write here, keep here. This is the logger. Any node, just keep here. And just expand it. And just go here and just rename it to private flow. Flow reference, and just keep here and make it private. Okay. Okay. Now you can see in the private flow only two parts is there. This part is not there. So that is the difference between the subflow and the private flow. Private flow is nothing. It is a main flow without a event source. If event source is missing in the flow, then that is called the private flow. And if only event processor is present, that is called the subflow. So for the private flow, what we have to do, again, if I want to insert this operation into the private flow, I will just copy here and drag to my insert operation. Let me make it bigger, and let me copy this and let me use it here. Okay, let me delete this logger. I don't need the logger, and let me delete here. Now you can see again I am going to use the flow reference, one more flow reference to refer this private flow. So let me use the flow reference and let me drag between this logger. And let me also refer the private flow. To refer the private flow, again select from here and just select the private and just save it. Now it is all done. What we have did, we have created a subflow. To create a subflow, go here in the platelet, just search the subflow and it will come here. Subflow consists of only event processor. To create a private flow, just drag any node and just write here, and whatever you want to implement, just write here. In the private flow, we can implement the error handling, we can implement the error event processor, but we don't have the error for event source. Again, with the help of flow reference, we have referred the subflow and we have referred the private flow. And it will, once the flow will came here, it will directly route to this subflow. Again it will came back here. Again once this will came here, it will route back to this private flow. Again it will came here and it will give the response. So let's try to debug this and let's see how basically it is working. I am going to debug this application to see whether it is working perfectly or not. Okay, let me change my in between these details. Let me write here name as Rahul, and let me change the employee ID to any other name. Let's give the has something. Okay, I am giving this number. Let's give this is the very good voice. Let me give as a band, and these are the details I am going to give while hitting the web service. Okay, let's wait for the application to be deployed. Once it is deployed, then we are going to hit the flow. Okay, now it's moved to the debug perspective, but still it is in the process to deploy. So let the application to be deployed, then I am going to hit the flow. Again, I have applied a breakpoint here so that I will see what is happening in the flow. It is still deploying, so you need to wait for now. You can see it is deployed. Now let's hit the flow. Now I just hit the flow. Now you can see in the here it came, and here in the payload you can see the same thing what I have sent here. Ready Rahul, everything is coming. Let's move forward. Now we are setting the variable. You can see we are setting the variable with the payload. Okay, with the payload. Now once it will move to the flow reference. It has came to the flow reference. In the logger you can see value, it is printed to the console. Once I will execute this flow, it will move to the this subflow, and it will insert the value inside the table. So let me move forward. You can see it, if this flow reference route my flow to the this subflow, and till now it is not inserted into table. If you go here, only the flow has routed. If I move forward, again this is going to insert the value, and again this is coming back to the next flow. Now this time it has been inserted. If you see, it is inserted with the Rahul. You can see Rahul is came. Okay, and this has came to again logger, and this, let's move forward. Again this flow reference came, and this flow reference is going to route the flow to this private flow, because we have referred here the private flow in the mule properties of the flow reference. You can see the private flow. Let's move forward, and you can see it has routed to this insert, and once this will be going to execute, it will insert the value inside the HR. If you go and select the HR one, you can see there Rahul has been inserted into the HR table. Let's move forward, and let's move forward. You can see that you will get the response as a both table employee second set successfully. Okay, now you can see how basically the private flow and the subflow works. And this is, now if I try to segregate the thing, this is the main flow, this is the subflow, and this is the private flow. And this flow reference I am using to refer the main flow to the subflow, and this flow reference I am using to refer the main flow to this private flow. Now let's try to remove this flow reference, and I want to implement this in another way. I don't want to implement this in this way. I want to try another approach. So let me remove this flow reference, and this also flow reference, and let me copy the first insert between here. Okay, let me copy here and give here, and let me copy here and give here. Okay, and let me try to delete this. Okay, let me try to delete this. Okay, just delete and delete. Okay, so now I have only flow same as the initial stage. Now my flow is same as the before. Now I am going to implement the same change in the same way, but in different style, and that will be very good. What I am going to do, let me make it bigger. If you I want to use insert while creating the subflow, right? So I will just click on that and you click right click here, and here you can see extract flow and the subflow. If you click on flow, it will create a private flow for you. If you click on subflow, it will click subflow for you. That's the best approach to create the subflow and the private flow, instead of going and dragging drop the node and dragging drop this all thing. That's the worst thing that I have experienced. Okay, the best way to just click on drag, just click on any node and just right click here, just extract it. If you want to create a private flow, click on flow, and if you want to create a subflow, just click on subflow. For this insert, I have already created. I basically I want to be subflow. So I am going to do the subflow. Here you have to give the switch. What is the subflow name? So let me give the subflow name like that. This is for the employer table, so let me use the emp subflow. Okay, and just click on OK. You can see this subflow has created, and automatically it created flow reference for you. That's the important benefit that I have seen. It created a subflow for you, it created a flow reference for you, and it refer the flow reference for you also. You can see it refer the flow reference for you, the same name that emp subflow it referred. Okay, similarly you can create for the private flow. Go to this insert, just right click here, extract to flow, give here the flow name. This is for the HR table, so I am going to give HR and give the private flow. Okay, just click on OK. Now you can see it created a private flow for you, and parallelly it created a flow reference for you, and it referred the HR private flow. If you see, go to here, and if you go this flow reference, you can see it referred it. That is the benefit, that is the main benefit that is I am saying here. What is the benefit? Once you right click here and just click on the extract to subflow, it will create a subflow for you, and it will create a flow reference. If you right click here and if you click on the flow extract to flow, it will create a private flow for you, and it will create a flow reference, and it will refer you. Let's try to customize the flow. Still it is not looking good, so I want to customize the flow. Okay, the logger what I have used here, I want to use here. Okay, so let me copy this logger and move forward, move here. Let me, okay, before here, and also the logger that I have used. Okay, here let me write here, not here. Let me copy this and here. Okay, before each insert I want to keep a logger, and this flow reference will be like that, and after the insert I am actually want to create a one logger. Okay, now it's looking good. Okay, I can also reduce this logger by keeping this here, not here. Let me use this logger to after the private flow. Now you can see that my flow is looking pretty good. Okay, now let me save this flow and let me show you. Now this is my main flow, this is my sub flow, and this is my private flow, and I am using this flow reference for the emp. Let me change the name also, that will be helpful. Emp reference, and let me write here the employee, and this let me write for the other. Let me change here the emp reference and the HR. Okay, let me, okay, now I have changed the name. Now it is the flow reference for the employee and it is the flow reference for the HR, and not HR only, it is not looking good. Let me HR private, it is for the private flow and it is for the sub flow. Let me write here as a sub flow. Okay, now it is looking good. Now you can see this is the flow reference that is for the inserting the table into the employer table, and that is referring to this subflow, and that is the flow reference that is to insert into the table HR, and that is referring to the this private flow. Now let's implement and see how basically looking in the debug mode. Let's try to deploy this and let's try to see how basically it is working into. Let me try it in between, try to change the data in the postman. Let me try to make this another name as Andrew, and let me employ ID as a Andrew for the and this number, and let me keep the rating as a and not A. Let me keep as a B, and let me try to keep year as a 2024 and the this something MP as a active. Okay, now that is all, let's see whether it has deployed or not. Let's go to console. It is still deploying, so let's wait for the few minutes. In between, I am going to, let me explain the flow. I am going to hit this payload, and this is going to, this is, let me come here, this is going to come here. After that we are setting the payload into variable. Again this will come to this flow reference, and this will referring to this subflow. It will go here, it will insert into the employer table. Again it will come back here, it will move to the another flow reference. This flow reference will refer to the this private flow, and this is going to insert into the another HR table, and after that it will come here and it will prepare a response in the transform message and it will give the response. Now it is deploy, my application is deployed. Let's try to hit the flow. Just I have sent the flow, and if you see it has came. Now you can see in the payload the value that Andrew and the employee ID, everything is coming. Let's move forward. Once I move forward, it came to flow reference. Once I will move forward, it will refer to this subflow and it will come here to the logger. Let's move forward. It has came to the logger. In the subflow, this flow reference refer to this subflow and it came to logger. Till now it has not inserted because the insert connector has not run. Let's move forward. Now you can see logger node has printed the value of the payload. Now let's move forward. You can see the value has inserted into table by running this insert connector, and it will move back to another flow reference. Now let's see whether it has inserted employer table or not. Let's select the employer table and let's see. You can see Andrew value has inserted with rating B. Okay, now let's move forward. Once this flow will be, I am going to move forward. This is going to refer to this private flow and will come to this logger. So let's move forward. You can see it came to this logger. Once I will move this logger, it will print the value inside the payload. You can see nothing is coming in the payload. Now once I will move forward, it is going to insert into the table. Now you can see insert has been happened. Now if you go to the HR table, it is going to insert it. So let's move forward. You can see in the HR table it has been inserted successfully the value. Now again this logger is used to print the payload. Then nothing is coming in payload, so that's fine. Again it came back to this transform message after running these all connectors, and it will prepare the response for me that this is the response it is going to prepare, and after that it is going to give a response to the listener. So let's move forward. Now you can see the response has came as the in both table same that I was expecting. Okay, and both in the both table it has also inserted successfully. So we have covered the everything. If we have covered everything like that, we have covered the what is the main flow, what is the private flow, what is the sub flow, and what is the flow reference we have covered in detail. And hope you have enjoyed. And again, if you have any question, any doubt, anything type of concern, you can contact me. And if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe it. Thank you all.